All right, well, welcome out to Time with Uncle Sam. I'm sitting down here with Andrew Decker, and you called me today. No, Glenn Wright called me.
Yep.
And he goes, I was sitting over there at the kitchen counter, and he goes, "Hey, Sam, I had this kid in school." And I'm thinking to myself, Glenn, that's about 75% of the county. That doesn't really narrow it down to anybody. And told me who you were, didn't know your last name. I don't think we've ever met before. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, he called me the other day and was asking about, he'd watched that interview we did. And he's like, did you pay for that? How much do you pay for that? And I said, he goes, well, I didn't pay anything for it. And I interrupted him. I said, what's he looking for somebody else to do an interview? And I said, sure. He told me who you were. You wanted for county council?
Yep.
Ripley County?
Ripley County Council at large, yep.
So anyway, then you called me this afternoon, shoving an interview here late night. And so you just walked in a couple minutes ago. We got this set up. Let's just two guys talking. One of the reasons I like doing these interviews is, and I don't know what your experience has been, but I pay attention to and have paid attention to, the national level politics, some of the state level stuff, and I hear about some of the county stuff, but with wife, kids, business, church, all the other stuff that you have going on. Life. Most of the time when it comes to county government, and I'm guilty just as much as anybody else is, but you end up going to the polls and you're going to vote for the president, Congress, governor, a state senator, state rep, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you look at some of the positions of the people you're supposed to be voting for and you go, oh, I didn't even know that was a position.
Right.
And then you just look for a name that you recognize, somebody you know. Mm-hmm. But it's not, I've always recognized as a voter, I'm not the most informed voter when I'm doing that. Correct. But I'm doing the best I can. At least I showed up to vote. That's kind of how I always thought about those things. And so if I were running for government, I would want some kind of interview like this because I hate, one of the things that I discussed about the political world, it's almost like there's as many hurdles for normal everyday people to be involved. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to raise so much money. You got to have so much time off. You got to have, there's this list of things. And so it leaves it to this select few, the elites among us. I'm not saying that specifically, right. But it kind of, people complain about the elites running the country. And I think, well, it's so dang hard to try and get elected. And most of the elections are, this is just, maybe this is a wrong perspective, but it's my perspective. Most of these elections are about how much crap can you talk about the other guy or how much false promises can you make. Mm-hmm. It's not really trying to help and serve the constituents of education to let people make an informed vote.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't like that about the political climate, and so I've wanted to change that. And so I appreciate interviews and a chance where, a situation like this where, Andrew, you don't have time. Do you know how many voters there are in Ripley County? We're talking, you're on the Republican ticket?
Yep. So
Republican primary turnout voter, there's like 29,000 people-ish in Ripley County. And you said what?
It's like 13% showed up on the last one.
So we're talking whatever,
2,500.
Okay, so to win 1,500 votes.
Right.
You don't have time to go have an hour conversation with 1,500 people in the next 5 weeks. And most of those people, you couldn't get your schedules lined up, phone calls to get with them. But we can do a video here at 9:30 at night or whatever it is. After the kids are down, regular business is done, and this is manageable government. This is a sensible way to be involved. And so why don't you just start with your background, upbringing. We'll see how this goes, and whoever's bothering to listen to this is just the third person in my living room having a conversation talking about you.
Yeah.
So born and raised, where'd you go to school, growing up, what'd your parents do?
Born and raised in Dearborn County.
Okay.
So I'm running for Ripley County. So
you live in Ripley County now?
I live in Ripley County now.
What part of Dearborn County were you in?
I was in New Elsa's area.
Okay, so northwest pass?
Northwest, essentially, yeah.
So you just drifted a little west, a little left, west.
I had to cross the line and head west.
Okay.
So,
where are you at now in Ripley?
I'm in Napoleon.
Okay, gotcha. And you're running for county council at large, right?
Yep.
So whole county is able to vote for you?
Yep, the whole county. And so growing up there in Dearborn County.
Where'd you go to school at?
East Central.
Okay.
So I went high school in East Central.
What'd your dad and mom do?
My dad was a carpenter, framer, house
Okay.
builder,
Self-employed, worked for the union.
self-employed. He worked for my uncle for 25 years.
Okay.
In LS Decker Construction, Larry Decker Construction, they build amazing homes.
Okay, gotcha.
And then now he's retired from it, and I worked for him as well.
Of course you did. When you're the kid of a business owner, it's like child slave labor is a thing of the present, right?
You have to, yeah.
It wasn't just back in the 1920s in factories, you know?
That's right. So, but doing that taught me a lot of business sense. At that point in time, seeing and working with my uncle hand in hand, and he would show and talk to you about, the different aspects of building and how you have to do this, that,
Right.
and the other to make money and to be profitable, I should say.
So growing up, what were some of your hobbies, interests, etc.?
Growing up, I was 100% an outdoorsman.
Okay.
I spent every waking moment that I had in the woods or running a trap line or, anything outdoors.
Right.
Hiking, camping, fishing, all that. That's what I love. That's how I was brought up. My dad did that. My grandpa, when they had the farm where I grew up, everything was outdoors.
Right.
So that's just what I knew.
Okay.
And how I was raised. And I try to pass that on to my children
Right.
as well.
So you graduated East Central. What year did you graduate?
2001.
Okay.
Yep.
So as you're phasing into high school and you're self-employed now, you do
Mhm.
what?
I raise pheasants.
Okay, full-time business?
Full-time business.
How long you been full-time in business?
This will be our 4th year.
Okay.
Prior to that, I had my own construction company.
Okay.
So
Did you start going into construction at high school? Like high school years, were you thinking construction just follow dad's footsteps? How do you make that transition?
high school years, I started off going into outdoor recreation.
Okay.
But at that point in time, my thoughts about outdoor recreation was outdoor
Right.
recreating, like
Right.
having fun outdoors, hiking, state parks,
Right.
forestry, all the
Were you
outdoor
thinking like
stuff.
a career in DNR or?
Essentially,
Okay.
but when I went to Vincennes College for that the first semester, I quickly realized that that's not essentially what that was. So in high school, Glenn Wright, as you said before, was my high school teacher, and
I think I'm one of the only people in Dearborn County that didn't have Glenn Wright as a teacher.
you missed out.
No, but actually,
Yeah.
no. Jack Day
Mhm.
was a deacon at my church, and one Sunday night we had Sunday morning Sunday school and then Sunday morning church. We went to a couple different churches, but from like 11 or 12 on through high school, I went to Washington Baptist out there in off of US 50.
Mhm.
And Jack Day was a deacon there, and he came walking in one evening, and Sunday night church was a smaller group of people, so you always got to know at least everybody at Sunday night church. And he came walking in one night, and he goes, "Hey, my parents were missionaries, and my dad grew up in kind of like suburban life. My mom grew up on a farm, but my dad grew up small town, Minnesota. Mom works at a hospital, dad owns a drugstore. The complete opposite end of the spectrum of how you grew up.
Yeah.
As far as like, they did outdoor stuff, but outdoors was, smell that fresh cut grass on the golf
Right,
green,
yeah.
golfing with that. It's just a different type of, still really, really good people up in Minnesota,
Mhm.
but the part of Minnesota is just a different experience than you.
Yeah.
So when I grew up, it was that my dad was teaching me how to skate and, play baseball, basketball, etc. And we would go fishing sometimes, but I wasn't around guns or anything else. And then my parents were missionaries internationally. So we're in foreign countries that don't even allow guns or whatever the situation
Right,
was. So then we moved back and we're in southern Indiana.
Right.
And so I always tell people I wasn't born a Hoosier, but I wasn't bred a Hoosier, but I've been fed, raised, and finished a Hoosier.
There you go.
And so we're going to church, and Jack Day invites me out, me and my younger brother, out to the is it Lafayette Valley Fishing Game Club is doing their Hunter's Ed program out there for kids. And so we went out there, and I think I just reconnected with Glenn this past year. And when I saw that name, I thought, man, I think he was out there at teaching that. I don't know if it was muzzle loading or shooting 22s or something, but I think he was involved in that.
Oh, I bet he was.
And so I mentioned that to him. He goes, "Sure we were." I said, "Well, I remember that name." And I think I remember him teaching me, or we were on one of the, they train you, you're going through bow, you're going through 22s, you're doing handguns, you're doing shotguns, you're doing all the different things that they have different stations, and you do the hands-on stuff.
Right.
And I think now that I met him again, I think I remembered him. But that doesn't really count one Saturday as my teacher. But that's the closest I've come to. I think Glenn Wright has pretty much taught almost everybody in Dearborn County.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt. Glenn was your teacher in high school, you said?
Yep. I was with him for 4 years between ag classes and FFA. That we were involved with that huge.
Okay.
At that point in time, and he's the one
did that have anything to do with winding up where you're at with pheasants and business?
Essentially, he's the one that kind of taught me the basics, and actually when I went to college, to Southeast Illinois College, I went for
you were at Vincennes first?
Yep, at Vincennes for a semester. Didn't work.
Okay.
That's not what I thought. And then I went to Southeast Illinois College, and that was a specialized program. They took 24 kids.
Oh, wow.
From the nation into this program, so you had to prove yourself to be able to even get in.
You tested into that, or what?
Yeah, you had to test, just a standard knowledge test. And from what Glenn had taught me through school, through our ag classes, natural resources, soils, forestry,
right,
animal science, all the different things, the facets of his
high school classes, right,
that he taught me and gave me that upper hand. And when I got to college, it was simple.
Really?
It was easy because I already had the information at hand. So, yeah, to Glenn Wright, hands down, he was a huge part of.
So, what did you do coming out of college then? Did you go straight into, your degree, or you get back into construction?
So, I straight out of college.
Were you living in Illinois, or you came back here after college?
Yeah, I was living in Illinois.
But you came back here, or you?
I did. My internship actually ended up being at Quail Ridge Sportsman's Club in Manchester, Indiana, which is in Dearborn County. So.
Where is that? Where is that at? Is that 3M Cube Farm or something?
Sure
okay.
Is. Yep.
I delivered gravel. So they changed that name?
Yeah.
Okay, I delivered gravel out there with my landscape business. This is 6 or 7 years ago, and what's that, like a 1,400 acre playground?
Yeah, yep.
Some rich dude from Indianapolis who owns a trucking company bought it or something. I think that was the story.
Jack Weigel, he's a great dude.
I never met him. I met the guy who manages everything, and I think the owner's son was getting married, and I had to deliver decorative gravel because they built this deck out in the middle of the field with the pond in the background, and they were gonna have an outdoor wedding. And I'm like, man, I gotta get to be this guy's success level in life that you can just afford to build a deck in the middle of a lawn that goes nowhere, and it was like 50 feet away. It's like this deck, and you'd think you'd build like a deck dock you could fish off of. No, it's like 40 feet from the bank, just in the middle of nothing. And they're probably gonna rip it out as soon as the wedding. Yeah, but it was totally picturesque. Yeah. It is beautiful, palatial place out there, and I had no idea it even existed before that. So that was your internship then, senior year?
Yep, that was my internship. So I went there, and then after my internship, I ended up being the manager. So I continued on there after my internship was hired on.
Okay. How long did you manage there?
So I managed there for 2 years.
Okay.
And then at that point, I was 21 years old, wanting to head out.
Right.
I wanted to see what options were out there, explore.
Sure.
So I put my resume together and sent it out to a place, Flying Bee Ranch in Idaho, which is an Orvis Indoors Lodge, like top of the line.
Okay.
Beautiful place, and I got hired on there.
Okay.
So I was a big game guide, wing shooting guide at that place. And
so you're paid to go play every day?
Yeah, essentially.
And be the instructor?
So I was there.
Were you married at the time, or single?
I was not. I was
a single guy, just traveling, making money?
Yep, just loving it.
That's the way to do it.
So
how long were you there for?
I was there for about a year and 3 months before I moved back. But once I got there, my first day on the job, I drove 30 hours from here to there, unload all my stuff into my house that I had, didn't unpack boxes, and went straight to work. And then got done with work, went home, tried to unpack some stuff, went to work the next morning, and they're like, you're going into the mountains this afternoon, and you'll be back in a month. I was like, awesome. You know, they said go home, pack what you need, and away I went. I lived in the mountains for a month straight. No cell phones, no
Wow.
communication. Just lived with horses and animals and clients coming in and out. Then I was hooked. You know, at that point, I loved it.
Who wants to go back to the city after that?
Right, but
So where did you go from there then? You were there for 1.5 years, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
So my degree that I got from Southeast Illinois College, we also studied game bird propagation,
Okay.
which is, you know, upland birds, pheasants, trucker, quail. We did studies in South Texas. We traveled the entire nation
Wow.
doing different things with that. So I had a good good grasp on
Right.
rearing game birds, and somehow they had a problem at their game bird farm, and I offered to, I said, I can come up and take a look and see
What? Yeah.
what was going on. And as soon as I got there, I'm like, well, you need to do this, you need to put them on this medication, and that should solve your issues. Well, from there on, they said, you're our new bird farm manager. I'm like, okay. I thought I was a guide. You know?
Yeah.
So they stuck me on the bird farm, and I enjoyed doing that as well. But at the same time, my dad was, my family's back here and everything, and I went from being a big game guy making good money with tips and everything else to making $11 an hour as a bird farm manager in Idaho, where I had to drive 2 hours to Walmart, or to get groceries even.
Okay.
But so at that
How long
point,
were you at that job then?
I did that for around 8 months.
Okay.
And then at that point in time, my dad said, why don't you come home and we'll just start our own
Construction business?
game bird farm.
Oh, gamer. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So we did, so I was like, sure. So why not? I mean, I knew what the profit margins were. I knew how the business worked because I was already running it, doing
Right.
everything.
You just weren't cashing the checks from doing it. Yeah.
So we came back home, started. My dad actually is the one that started the farm on our property in Napoleon.
Okay.
And so I helped him do that along the way.
Was Quail Ridge already out of business at that point?
It went out of business, I think, in 2006.
When did you guys start?
About 2000 and... Sorry, we started in 2006. It went out about 2009.
Okay.
So, or somewhere.
Were you guys a lot of competition, or for them, or they just?
No, we supplied them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were a supplier of them. So me with
They were one of your customers then.
Yep. So they were a customer. So they
Okay.
would buy around 2,000 pheasants a year from us.
Holy cow.
So we did. That was a good leg up. In industry on that. But so we did that, and then obviously I wasn't doing that full time, and I worked for my uncle.
Construction.
Construction.
Okay.
So I worked for him for quite a few years, and then I got married. We had our first kid,
Okay.
and bills are coming in. We built a house and everything, and at that point in time,
So putting your roots down then officially in Ripley County.
Yep, in Ripley County, and then my uncle at that point in time was starting to phase out. So at
Oh,
that
the
point-
construction.
Yep.
Okay.
So at that point in time, I was starting to phase into my construction company.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you still do construction at all, or no?
Not very much.
Okay.
Yeah. So the pheasant farm keeps me quite busy, along with 4 kids and
Yeah, I can imagine.
counsel
So
and everything.
scale and operation of stuff. What's normal life like for you? Is there a season with your farming? Is
Mhm.
there?
Yep. So the farming, we get, for example, we get chicks April 30th,
Okay.
and we'll get around 30,000 chicks till August, and then I have a couple week break essentially in September, and that's when I go west. I head west
Okay.
and spend a couple weeks out there every year.
Okay.
That's kind of like the vacation of,
Gotcha.
of the season, and then it runs full bore all the way till the end of March. So I have about 3 weeks in April and 3 weeks in September that.
And then the rest of the time it's
Yes.
2 operations. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
So you've been full time in that business for how long?
2 years full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So now
this will be
you're
the 3rd year full time.
so you're running for county council,
Yep,
and you are currently on county council.
correct.
When did you first get elected?
I got elected in 2020.
Okay. Well, did you ever think when you moved back to this area, did you ever think you'd wind up in government, or why did you
I didn't.
why did you end up getting involved in running? What was the deciding factor?
I think the biggest thing was, doing farming and everything else, seeing a lot of the papers and just kind of diving into some of the things that were going on in the county. It kind of interested me a little bit. And then, my family has more of a military background. My brother was in the Air Force, my
Okay,
uncle was in
gotcha.
the Air Force, Navy,
Right.
all that stuff. And I never took that path, but I still felt like I wanted to help or
Get back.
put
in
in
some
my
way.
input,
Right.
essentially. And that was one way, or the only way that I seen to be able to do it.
So
And
being so you just wrapping up your first term and you're running for re-election now.
mm-hmm.
What was your perception of county government going in, and did that change at all over your first term?
My perception going in was, to be honest, I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Okay.
You hear, like you said, you hear all that there's, bickering of this or
Right.
disagreements of this or that, and
Did you ever? But you never paid attention to county government before that. You were just getting
Not-
involved.
not really.
Okay.
Just you would see stuff in the paper or something,
Right,
and
right.
I'd walk in and be like, oh, well. When it came to county council, I wasn't exactly sure
Right.
what it was. And I looked into it, and then I realized, well,
I'm guilty of that too. I'm like,
Yeah.
county council. What the heck do they do? They're county council. What does county council do?
yeah, and
You know,
and a lot
I
of
was just
people
always
don't know.
distracted with life. And did you? So education's a little bit different for me. But do you remember civics education school?
Mm-mm.
Did you have it? Do you know if you did?
No.
I always hear from lots of people, wow, the problem is they need to get civics education back in school. And you hear it at like the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've looked at county government and even state government, you go, you can't have one universal federal, you teach it about civics when it comes to the federal government. Most of these kids in school, the federal government is so far removed, it has way too much control over their life. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
it's so far removed from their accessibility to ever influence
Yeah.
that it's almost disinteresting,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's almost a turnoff of, unless you just want to be in government, which I don't think we want anybody in the next generation who just wants to look at government as a career. We don't want
Right,
that. We don't want to breed that kind of recruiting, so to speak, of politicians from 30 years from now. I decided when I was in 9th grade I wanted to be a congressman. Like that's
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree. Washington D.C. has way too many career politicians
Correct.
on both sides of the aisle
Mm-hmm.
and in between and all over the place. But I don't really hear a lot of people talking about and helping kids or high school programs or whatever understanding how to be involved in county government.
Correct.
And you can't mandate that from a federal level. It almost has to be, even in the state of Indiana, there's some different counties that run things slightly differently. But most people coming out of public high schools that I hear of, now I didn't go to public high school, so I don't know what your experience was,
Mm-hmm.
but they have no clue how much county government affects their life and how to be involved
Right.
or where to put pressure if you want to move the boulder, so to speak, or change things or improve things, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like we've created this system of you're completely ignorant, which is why I want to do something like this, because then that's the people who are showing up at the polls completely ignorant of what goes on in county government. So not knowing much about county council, what's the biggest portion for the average voter that's showing up? The typical voters can show up May 7th and vote in the primary. What's the one or two things that they should know about county council that you didn't know when you were just a normal voter, you weren't on county council, before you've been involved in government?
So I think number one is we're the controller of the public's money, essentially.
Okay.
We have to make sure that we're not overspending. We're not.
So you guys set the budget?
Yep, we
Okay.
set the budget. We do the yearly budget. The department heads bring in their budget, proposed budget, and then we literally take every line item through the budget, go through everything, make sure it's, you know, transparent, make sure it's justifiable, make sure it's sustainable.
Right.
And coming into that, I had no clue that's what it was.
But you had a business background, so you're used to looking at things.
Yeah, you're used to looking at budgets and numbers and making sure that it's going to work, making sure it's going to sustain, making
Right.
sure it's justifiable, that you're not wasting. So that helped being an entrepreneur for so long.
Right.
Because I had to run my own budgets that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, essentially,
You got to
go
figure
broke.
out as an entrepreneur. You got to figure out how to create the funds. You don't get nobody hands you a certain amount and
Exactly,
says, "Hey,
yeah.
here's what you get to spend." You're like, you get to spend nothing until you
Yeah.
figure out how to make something, and then you
Exactly.
better watch how much you spent because
Mhm.
you had to work your stinking rear end off
Yeah.
just to be able to make a buck.
Yeah, but the way I look at it is, you know, the people that the county are working their rear ends off to be able to provide the funds for us. So I feel that it's my responsibility, as well as the other councilmen, responsibility to put their time in, do the due diligence to make sure that their money's going to the right places for the right reasons at the right
Mhm.
times.
How many people on our county council? You got 7 people.
7. Yep.
Okay. What's the ratio of Democrat, Republicans, Independents? What's the ratio of those 7? So you got 3 of those are up for election.
Yep.
This by at large. So.
Yep.
And they can live from anywhere. The whole county votes for them.
Anywhere. Yep.
And then the off year, so 2026 and 2022,
Mhm.
you had by district. You had 4 districts.
Right.
So of those 7 council members, what's the Democrat Republican ratio or the independents in there?
It's 7 Republicans.
7 Republicans. Okay.
7 Republicans right now. So, as we, you know, go along on that, as we're running again, I think this election cycle we have an independent, a Democrat, and then 7 Republicans running for 3 seats.
Okay.
So 9 in total.
9 in total. So that breaks down to if people are pulling a Republican ballot this spring, they're going to see 7 people for 3 spots.
Essentially. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
So.
So let me, I jotted down some questions here of some things that might be pertinent to you.
Okay.
So what was your biggest surprise your first term?
I'd say the biggest surprise was going to the first meeting, going to the meeting prior to when I was elected. So I went and kind of shadowed some meetings before I was elected, and I really got to see all the details and all the things that went into these meetings. That was a huge surprise. I thought it was a meeting that you sat and talked about upcoming things, and you know, I didn't realize it was down to dollars, cents, pennies, essentially, of how everything was balanced out. So at that point in time, I realized that this is super detailed,
Okay.
super involved, and when I got in there, the biggest surprise was so much to learn. There was so much to learn being newly elected into it.
As far as information coming at you or
Information
subjects?
and subjects, line items, accounts, all the
So you're talking about the
facets of
complexity,
county. Yeah,
the complexity of the county, the budget, the funding,
yeah,
what makes the county go around.
right.
Much more detailed than you would have thought.
Right. That was the most surprising thing, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the public don't necessarily realize how many things it takes to make the county work.
What's the best way for someone who's just a normal everyday person to I don't know if the right way of saying this is keep tabs or keep themselves informed? I mean, you guys have public meetings, correct?
Yeah, we have
How many
public
meetings do you have a year?
12.
12. So you got one every month?
One every month.
Okay.
And then if we have special meetings or everything's all publicly advertised.
Right.
But all the minutes are recorded. and everything's accessible through the internet to go through and look at, what items come up
Okay, gotcha.
in each meeting, how money is transferred, how it's moved. I think the budgets are all made public. You can go at how everything works. I think it's all perfectly transparent in that aspect.
Okay.
But
What is, you learn things from being on both sides of the coin, so to speak. You're just a normal voter who probably, like me, at one point showed up and voted for somebody on county council, having no clue what county council does. Decide, hey, it's time to get involved, give back, but, I'll volunteer to do this, etc. And then you flip on the other side of that coin of being surprised. Wow, there's a lot of details here. I didn't realize the county was so complex. How much money does it take to do this? Oh, and there's another department over here we need to fund. And you start looking at all that and you go, wow, okay, we have this XYZ amount of pool of money, but it's kind of all spoken for. And we got to make sure that we're responsible and fiscally responsible with this. So you start going through those things. But if you were to back up to who you were before you were on county council, and knowing that, you've been on both sides of the table here, to the typical person out there, what's the best way for them to make their voice heard? Do they get lost in the shuffle when they come to a county council meeting? Are they so poorly attended that if you show up at a county council meeting, you're probably going to get heard out? It's the best way to seek somebody out outside of a county council meeting. I mean, what's the best way for someone to... So, you got the First Amendment, you have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, right to peaceably assemble, and the right to redress your government for grievances. So that's, number one. Those are those 5 things in the First Amendment. And those are rights to us as citizens. I've found so many people, redressing the government isn't jumping on social media and whining and complaining.
Right.
It's not, for a lot of people. I'm not sure about you, but I don't think you go scrolling through thousands of people's pages just to see if somebody commented on county government.
Right.
So that's not always the best option. But what's the best way for a private citizen, a normal everyday person who's not involved, maybe they don't know or have a relationship currently, their buddy's not on county council, what's the best way for you to hear them? Or anybody on county council to hear them, typically? Is it that public meeting?
The public meetings are there, but like our phone numbers are posted on the county webpage.
So anybody can call you anytime?
Anybody can reach out to you. And I've had people call and just to ask questions, which I appreciate because everyone needs to know or has the ability to know what's going on. And if they have a question, I have no problem answering them.
Have you seen engagement from the public go up or down over the last 4 years?
In the last 4 years, it's went up.
Okay.
I'm positive.
Do you
Our meetings
have a speculation as to why?
I think at the time that we're in, with everything costing more, everything being harder for just the general person, I think people are paying a little bit more attention to what's going on,
Right, I would agree with that.
So, we all get the same bills in the mail, and, property taxes are up as a whole, and everything else that, hurts all of us together, and you pay attention to this, that, and the other of why or how does this happen, and where's it going, and I feel like there's been a lot better outpouring of concerned people in a good way.
Right.
So.
Well, more engagement is more competition, is more people paying attention. That's how you get more transparency. People can talk about transparency all they want, but transparency is something that happens. It's not something we just talk about.
Right.
And so people can promote it and say they want it, but that takes everybody engaging. You look at a situation, you go, that's a transparent conversation, or that's a transparent situation. You can't have transparency when nobody pays attention. If no one's looking, it's the same as nobody being able to see.
Right.
So that takes engagement from the public. So if people want to get involved, so there's 7, so it sounds like Ripley County, you win the primary, that's pretty much what's going to win in general, because it's a heavily Republican county.
Right.
So you've got 7 people running for 3 spots. So there's 4 people who are not getting elected. If people like you, want to get behind you, support you, what's the best way for them to help get involved in you getting reelected?
obviously we put signs out and try to promote ourselves that way.
Do you have a Facebook page?
We do. I have Andrew Decker for Ripley County Council on the Facebook page.
People message you there, phone call you? How's that work?
Message me, my number's there. You can call, message, text.
Okay.
Anything on that point. And I like that people call and show support and offer to, you know, put a sign, hey, can you put a sign in my yard? Or I think the public reaches out very well with that. And it's already on the county page as well. My number 2 that's been around for the last 4 years. But
you got time for one more question I just thought of?
Sure do.
When you look down the road over the next 4 years, whether it's you reelected or somebody else, what is the biggest concern people may or may not be thinking about that is going to be of probably the greatest importance to constituents? Maybe people don't know about it, but it's going to be a topic of the next 4 years as a county. Now having had access to the inside table of looking at things and the details, what are things that are going to affect people's lives the most? Are there challenges that you foresee that Ripley County needs to, not necessarily problems, but we all have our own lives. There's going to be things on the horizon. What's on the horizon for people that maybe voters don't know about?
I think a lot of it's going to be our emergency medical services, Ripley County, which is super important. We have our own EMS, county funded EMS, our police department, and fire as well. A lot of our fire departments are volunteer departments. There's just a couple paid departments in the county, Versailles, Batesville. So trying to promote them and help them stay afloat. Which bring on, you know, the public safety tax, and that's really going to shine in the next 4 years. And I think the citizens of Ripley County are really going to appreciate what we're doing with that money. And I think that's really going to show. So as a positive, that's one thing that we will see. You know, everything should be enhanced as far as, you know, police officers, EMS, fire, all the public safety issues. So I think that's one huge positive that citizens should maybe take note and realize that our money as a taxpayer as well is going to a great thing for the county as a whole.
I think that's, you know, one of my complaints with government, and I interact with this with so many people, and I get it. We're all Republicans. We're all conservative. Well, we're not all conservatives. I'm a conservative. I'm just meeting you for the first time, but I'm assuming you're conservative as well. A lot of people in this part of Indiana are conservative. And one of the things that you, especially with Indiana being a more fiscally responsible state, the lifestyle of most Hoosiers, I think, is appreciate the simple things in life. You know, we're not New York or LA. We don't care if you finance some $300 sunglasses or some, you know, some stupid jewelry and you can't even pay your electric bill at home. We like money in the bank and financial peace and a simple life and the important things, family, community, friends, etc., appreciating nature. There's so many different things to the Hoosier way of life, or at least down in this the southeast part of the state. And so it's a general thing that people complain about taxes. I complain about taxes, etc. But I think most people's frustration, and mine included, comes from taxes I can't control. I don't have a problem paying $50 for dinner or $100 for dinner. I have a problem paying $25 for a Walmart hamburger, right? But if I'm at a nice restaurant with my wife, I'll spend $50. You know, so it's all about value of what you're getting. And I find that when it comes to local control of government and spending, etc., you know, raising taxes is never it always, in our area, and me included, I'm always, they want to raise taxes? What? What's the best way for people to look at those budgets? Is there one budget meeting where you guys cover most of that to actually see where their money is going? Do they get lost on the internet finding that? Is there a simple place to find that online? How do people actually see what their money's going to?
I'd say the best way, you know, we do our budget hearings in August.
So this coming up August.
Yep, that's coming up August, and that's all recorded, and what funds go to where, what monies go to this.
Did you guys record the last one? Can people go back and see that?
Yep.
So if they're looking at the election, they want to look at, you know, who to vote for, how we spend money. They can go back and look at all. Okay, that's all public record.
Who approved that? You know, and I will say, council as a whole, we don't agree all the time, which is good.
Right. Well, that's why there's
like,
7 council members, not 1.
Exactly. So that works well, and so it makes it easy for the public to be able to see who did this, who did, you know, who wanted this, that, the other. But also as a council, as a whole, we work super well together as far as justifying what we're doing.
Right.
Making sure that it's sustainable. Our talks that we have in public session
right.
is all obtainable. And then you can always call the auditor of Ripley County and receive, you know, whatever documents you're after.
All right, sweet. Well, before we wrap this up, are there any questions I didn't cover? Anything you wanted to share or comment on? Or is that pretty much what you're looking for?
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Appreciate you doing this, and I appreciate everybody's support, especially the ones that have given it to me previously and upcoming. So.
All right, sounds great. Well, Andrew, pleasure meeting you, and thanks for doing the interview.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great.